We didn't create this nation. Founding fathers didn't create it either, hard as they worked to achieve its independence. God created this country, and everything that God creates is created for a reason and for a purpose. If we are indeed a nation under God, then the words of Isaiah chapter 42, verses 5 to 9, are addressed to us as much as they were to the word of the Lord to Israel. Thus says God, the Lord, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread out the earth and what comes from it, who gives breath to the people upon it, and spirit to those who walk in it. I am the Lord. I have called you in righteousness. I have taken you by the hand and kept you. I have given you as a covenant to the people, a light to the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prison those who sit in darkness. I am the Lord, that is my name. My glory I give to no other, nor my praise to idols. See, the former things have come to pass, and new things I now declare before they spring forth. I tell you of them. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Please pray with me for a moment. Good and gracious God, who has blessed us in so many ways, we ask you to bless our worship. Bless these words, bless our thoughts, that we may grow in faith and love and service, and be ever more faithful to your way, your truth, and your leadership. And that the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts acceptable to you, for our God and our Redeemer. Amen. We have been blessed. Our nation's early years were people of creative imagination who had a vision of a different form of government and the passion and determination necessary to bring it about. We have been blessed. We live in a country with a standard of living higher than most places in the world, with freedoms and liberties to match. We've been blessed. I can't say that Americans are God's chosen people, but I do know we've proclaimed ourselves to be a nation under God. If we really mean that, then fairer than the democratic deliberations of Congress, wiser than the judgments of the Supreme Court, more powerful than the president, higher than the flag, is God. People or nations who claim to live under God have a special responsibility to live up to God's expectations for them. The Bible makes it clear that a king is expected to side with those who could easily fall through the cracks: the poor, the weak, the needy, the one who has no helper. Under God's rule, leaders are charged with saving the lives of those people, making sure they receive justice and are delivered from their distress and are protected from oppression and violence. God's dream, recorded in the Bible, is much the same as our nation's dream, inscribed on the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. There's a tension between those words and xenophobia and resentment against immigrants, between those words and racism and unequal benefits, unequal justice under the law. Our leaders may try to live under God. There's a gap between the liberating dream and the flawed reality. What would our country be like if we could more truly live out the vision? We have to try. God calls nations for a purpose. Isaiah tells Israel they are to be a light to the world, bringing light and vision to those who cannot see. We like to think of our country as a light to the world. That statue standing in New York Harbor is described as a mighty woman with a torch. Her name, Mother of Exiles, who says, I lift my lamp beside the golden door. For better or worse, a light that shines so brightly is visible for all to see. So bright it exposes the gap between our liberating dream and our flawed reality. Can we prophetically call our nation to live the dream? We have to try. God calls us for a purpose. We are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people, that we may declare the wonderful deeds of him who called us out of darkness into his marvelous light. That's the verse just before the word from the Lord we heard, now being God's people. Higher than our loyalty to our nation, its leaders, and its policies is our loyalty to God. Brighter than the torch's light of the Statue of Liberty is the light of God. We don't know if our nation is chosen by God, but we do know, beyond the shadow of any doubt, that we have been chosen by God. Chosen in order that we might declare God's wonderful deeds to anyone who will listen. God offers freedom that can be present even when hands are still chained. God offers light that shines in rooms that have no electricity. God offers life, liberty, and the pursuit of holiness. God stands with the tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of humanity that sleeps in cardboard shelters on the street and stands on corners with signs asking for work. God stands with them and speaks on their behalf and calls us to do the same. Christ stood with them and touched them and loved them and healed them. God calls them and gives them a new identity. Once you were no people, but now you are God's people. Our good intentions cannot bridge the gap between our forefathers' liberating dream and the flawed reality of our nation's daily life. Good intentions won't do that. But Jesus Christ can bridge the gap between God's liberating redemptive dream and the reality of human sin and failure. He did it on the cross, and he does it at his table. At the Lord's table, all are equal in God's eyes. All are free from sin. All are blessed with grace. All are one in Christ. What would our church be like if we could more truly live out that vision of God's? We have to try. This weekend, we remember a dream of independence. We honor the memory of leaders who had a vision. We celebrate a proclamation that the Creator endowed all people with certain unalienable rights. The proclamation, the dream, the vision are all good. But we must also remember there remains a huge gap between the liberating dream and the flawed reality. And we are called as a people of God and as a nation under God to do something about it. Whenever we see flaws, we must put aside blind loyalty to nation in order to be loyal to God. We must prophetically call our leaders, our nation, and ourselves to live God's dream. Or, fairer than the democratic deliberations of Congress, wiser than the judgments of the Supreme Court, more powerful than the president, higher than the flag. God.